Hello everyone. At this moment, we're going to have a review on our previous topic on sampling. But before that, let us first recall what is a population. So a population is the entire group that you want to draw a conclusion about or a group that you are interested in. So sampling is specifically a specific group that you're going to collect data from. So it is a selection of a subset of the population of interest in a research study. So basically, sampling or sample is less than the size of sample is always less than the size of the population. Okay, so here's the definition. Sample is a subgroup of the population. In other words, as I've said, that the number of individuals in the sample is less than the number of individuals in the population. Okay, so here's the reason why researchers usually use samples rather than studying the whole population. So first, it saves the researcher time and money. Number two, it enables the researcher to get information that the researcher might not be able to obtain otherwise. And three, it enables the researcher to get more detailed information about a particular subject. Okay, now in sampling, there are two basic types. First, we have the probability sampling, and next, we have the non-probability sampling. Now, in the first type, which is the probability sampling, so it follows the idea or the concept of probability theory in which every member of the population has chance of being selected as participant in your study. And this type of sampling also mainly used in quantitative research, in which the data are in numerical or in number form. Okay, then if you want to produce results that are representative of the whole population, then probability is the best choice. Okay, now in probability method, there are four kinds. Okay, first we have the random or simple random sampling. Second, we have the systematic sampling. Next, we have the stratified sampling. And fourth, we have the cluster sampling. Okay. So simple random sampling is obtained by using methods such as random numbers, which can be generated from our calculators, computers, or tables. So simple random sampling, all possible samples of this size have an equal chance of being selected from the population. Now remember that this type of sampling can be also only used when our sample is in small in size. So for example, we have the fishbowl method. If your random sample would be the grade 9, so you may pick their names in a bowl called the fishbowl method. Then another example is the wheel of names. So note, as I've said, that this type of sampling, probability sampling rather, is exclusive only in a small population. This is unbiased since the researcher has no control or cannot manipulate the data in selecting respondents. Okay. So here is the illustration. As you notice, everyone in this circle illustration has the equal chance of being selected as participants to your study. Okay, that is simple random sampling. Now we have another type which is systematic sampling. So systematic sampling is a sample obtained by numbering each element in a population, selecting some random starting point and then selecting every key element. So the researcher uses pattern to obtain his or her participants from a population. So it could be third or fifth or tenth, etc. So here's the illustration. So as you notice, the researcher marked or uses patterns to select his or her participants that he'll going to uh, study in his or her research. Okay, for example, pattern. And of course, this is randomized. Then we have to remember that this type of sampling is also exclusive in a small population. Now, third type of sampling of non of probability sampling rather, we have stratified sampling. So, stratified sampling is a sample obtained by dividing the population into subgroups called strata according to various homogeneous characteristics. So, when we say homogeneous characteristics, those are characteristics that the researcher have seen common to all the participants in a population. Okay, it could be ages, heights, or any other characteristics. And then after that, the researcher randomly selects members from each stratum for the sample. So stratum is the group in our strata. Okay. So, for example, educational attainment in your barangay. So, the population in your barangay are divided based in their educational attainment. So, by high school graduate, college graduate, master graduate, or PhD graduate. Okay. Next type or next kind of probability sampling is the cluster sampling. So a sample is obtained by selecting a pre-existing or natural group called cluster. So when we say pre-existing, it is already there, okay? And using the members in the cluster for the sample. For example, so here's an illustration. Example, in a city consisting of four districts, District 3 is chosen. Therefore, it will serve as a sample that represents your population as a whole. Again, this district four districts are already existing in a city. So, and the researcher only selected or chosen District 3 to represent the whole population or the whole city. So, four districts here are already pre-existing. Okay. Now we have also other types of sampling techniques. We have first the sequence sampling. So sequence sampling is used in quality control. Successive units taken from production lines are sampled to ensure that the products meet certain standards set by the manufacturing company. Okay, it's self-explanatory. So double sampling, a vast population is given a questionnaire to determine those who meet the qualification for study. After the questionnaires are reviewed, a second smaller population is defined. Then a sample is selected from this group. Okay, here in this type of sampling, the sample undergoes a undergoes two different stages. So first, the sample or the population rather is will have a questionnaire to determine those who meet the qualification for a study, and then after that, um, after the researcher um, weigh all those uh, response from that questionnaires, then another population or another smaller population is defined after that, after gathering the first response from that first giving of questionnaire. Okay, now we have also multi-stage sampling. So the researcher uses a combination of sampling methods. So from the word multi-stage sampling, the researchers, I mean the population or the population or the sample undergoes different stages in selection. Okay, so the same with double sampling that I it undergoes two different stage before being selected as participants. So in multi-stage sampling also, the sample or the population undergo into a multi stages of selection as a participant. Okay. So now let's proceed to another basic type of sampling method, which is the non-probability sampling method. So individuals here are selected based on non-random criteria, and not every individual has a chance of being included. So it is the opposite of the probability sampling, in which everyone has an equal chance of being selected as participants. So non-probability sampling method mainly used in a qualitative type of research, okay, where the researcher selected usually selects his or her participants in his or her study. Okay. So we have also four types. First, we have convenience sampling. Then we have purposive sampling. And then last, we have snowball sampling. So, okay. So our first kind or type under this non-probability sampling is the convenience sampling. So in this type of sampling, the researcher simply includes individuals who happen to be most accessible to the researcher. So it is for convenient purpose. So on the researcher only tap or only choose samples that are most accessible to his or to him or her. So an easy and an inexpensive way to gather initial data, but there is no way to tell if the sample is representative of the population, of course. So it can produce generalized results. So convenience sampling is usually prone to error. Okay. Example. So here's an illustration. A company wants to donate money to five orphanages in its city. It selects sorry. It selects the five most popular orphanages and makes donation to them. Okay, next type under non-probability sampling is purposive sampling. So it also known as judgment sampling, in which the researcher uses their expertise to select a sample that is most useful for research purposes. So a purposive sampling, it is the researcher who chooses whom will be participate will whom will participate in his or her study. So he or she is the one who selects his participants in his or her research. Uh, of course, when he wanted to uh, when he wanted to collect relevant data using purposive sampling, you're going to select those participants or choose those participants that will actually give relevant data lang din. And this is often used in qualitative research where the researcher wants to gain detailed knowledge about a specific phenomenon rather than make statistical inferences or where the population is tiny and precise. So again, in purposive sampling, it is the researcher who chooses his or her participants based on his or her judgment. Okay? So example, before launching a new wine product, an organization conduct pilot testing to gather feedback from the market. For the sample population, the researcher chooses expert wine testers to provide valuable feedback for product improvement. So here, the researcher chooses expert wine testers. So it is the researcher who decided who will be the participants in his or her research. Understood? Okay. Now we have the last type, which is the snowball sampling. So snowball sampling, if the population is hard to access, snowball sampling can be used to recruit participants via other participants. So snowball sampling is a recruitment method in which the selected participants by the researcher will assess the researcher to select or to gather new participants. Okay. However, the downside here the is representativeness, as you cannot know how representative your sample is due to the reliance on participants recruiting others. Okay, this can lead to sampling bias. So snowball sampling is prone also to error, as it is those participants that you have selected first. It is on to them on how they were going to select new participants. Okay, so you cannot control since I have said those participants that you have selected first will select another participant. So it's on to their choices on how they were going to select or to recruit new group of participants. Okay. For example, So, a researcher seeking to study leadership patterns could ask individuals to name others in their community who are influential. So, that is noble sampling. So, do you have any questions regarding on sampling? If you have, do not hesitate to send me a message on Messenger or type a comment on our Google Classroom. Okay, that's all. Thank you.